Before I say anything else, I want you to pick a number. A $500,000 house. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, a small yard. The kind of house that used to be normal. How much do you think a family needs to earn in a year to actually afford it? Not to get approved by a bank. To afford it and still sleep at night. Hold your number. Most people guess somewhere around 100 grand. Maybe 120. Keep it in your head, because by the end of this, you'll see the real number, and the gap between your guess and the truth is the whole story. Here's where we're starting from. In a lot of American cities right now, $500,000 isn't the dream house. It's the baseline. That number gets you a regular place near a regular job. Laminate counters, beige carpet, a yard about the size of a beach towel. Now line that up against what a normal household actually earns. The median household income in America is about $84,000 a year. So we're asking a typical family to buy a house that costs 6 times everything they make in a year. For most of history, the rule of thumb was about 3 times your income. We've quietly doubled it and kept smiling. And almost everyone in this story is telling you, it's fine. The mortgage officer says, you're approved. Your parents bought their first place on way less. Someone online is buying homes with no money down. So if it's fine, why does the math feel so heavy every single month? Here's the part nobody slows down to explain. Getting approved for a loan and being able to live a good life inside that loan are 2 completely different numbers. One is the bank's risk. The other is your whole life. So let's build the real cost from scratch. Start with the down payment because that's the first wall. The classic move is 20% down. On a $500,000 house, that's $100,000 in cash. Real cash, sitting in an account, ready to wire. Now here's the quiet problem. The typical American savings account holds around $8,000. So the gap isn't small. It's about $92,000. Then I'll just save it, you say. Okay, let's check. Save a solid 10% of an $84,000 income, which almost nobody manages, and that's $8,400 a year. At that pace, the down payment takes you about 12 years, and house prices won't politely wait. So most people don't put down 20%. They put down 5 or 10%. And that unlocks a brand new monthly fee called PMI. It's an extra charge you pay every month just for not having the full 20%. It protects the bank, not you. Call it $200 to $400 a month. Now the main event, the mortgage payment itself. Put 10% down and you're borrowing $450,000. At today's rate, around 6.5%, that's roughly $2,800 a month. And that's only the loan. It doesn't include a single other thing about living there. Add property taxes. Be gentle and call it $500 a month. Add homeowners insurance, which has jumped almost everywhere lately. Another $300 a month. Add maintenance, the thing everyone forgets until the water heater quits on a Sunday night. Budget about 1% of the home's value a year. That's roughly $417 a month. And the PMI from before? Tack on $300. So let's add it up. Mortgage, $2,800. Taxes, $500. Insurance, $300. Maintenance, $417. PMI, $300. Your true monthly cost lands around $4,300, and that's a calm month where nothing breaks. Quick recap before the reveal, because this is the moment you've been waiting for. We've got a real monthly cost of about $4,300 for a $500,000 house. Now let's reverse it into the income you actually need. The healthy guideline is that housing should eat no more than 28% of what you make before taxes. Run $4,300 a month back through that 28%, and you need to earn about $187,000 a year. Even if you stretch to the loosest limit banks will allow, you still need around $150,000. So here's the real number. Pull out your guess. If you said $100,000, you're not a little off. You're about 90 grand short. And now the question that decides everything. How many households actually earn that much? Only about 1 in 6 households makes over $200,000. Only about 1 in 10 cracks the top, around $250,000. Which means, by any honest standard, roughly 80% of American households can't comfortably afford a $500,000 house. That's not an insult. That's just the arithmetic. But people are still buying these houses, right? So who are they? And how does it feel once they're inside? Let me show you a real one. Meet a couple we'll call Priya and Sam. 2 solid jobs, $160,000 combined. Well above average, genuinely doing well. On paper, they should be fine. So watch what happens after they buy the $500,000 house. That $160,000 looks great until payday. After taxes and a small retirement contribution, they actually bring home about $9,500 a month. Now subtract the housing cost we built, $4,300. That leaves $5,200 for the entire rest of their lives. 2 cars to get to those 2 jobs, $800. Insurance on both, $250. Gas, because nothing out here is walkable, $300. Student loans for the degrees that got them the jobs, $600. Health premiums their employers don't fully cover, $400. Groceries for 2 careful eaters, $800. Utilities for a bigger house, $450. Add it up, and they're down to about $1,500 a month. And we haven't touched clothes, a night out, kids, or a single emergency. That couple is spending nearly half of their take-home on the house. Not the 28% the rule wants, closer to 46%. And they're the ones who are doing well. So now walk it down the ladder, because most of us aren't pulling $160,000. Take a household at $120,000 a year. Still well above average. After taxes, they bring home around $7,600 a month. That same $4,300 house now swallows about 57% of everything they make. There's no honest version of that with an emergency fund still standing. And at the real median, $84,000, the numbers stop bending. The all-in cost of the house is actually more than the whole take-home paycheck. It isn't tight. It simply doesn't fit. So here's the pivot most people miss. The bank's yes was never a measure of whether you can afford the house. It was a measure of whether the loan would survive on paper. Affording a house isn't the day you get the keys. It's every quiet month afterward, where one surprise doesn't turn into a crisis. And when housing eats half your take-home, there's no room left for the surprise, the water heater, the brakes, the month your hours get cut. That's the difference between owning a home and being owned by one. Now zoom out, because this isn't really about one couple making a tight choice. It's about a number that quietly came apart. Since 1990, home prices are up about 400%. In the same years, household income is up only about 180%. The 2 lines used to move together, then one of them ran away. That gap is the whole feeling you've been carrying. It's why your parents' math doesn't work for you, even if you both did everything right. And here's the gentle truth about everyone telling you to buy. The agent earns when you close. The bank earns on 30 years of interest. The insurer earns on the policy. None of them get paid when you say, "This one doesn't work for me." The system is built to get you through the door, not to check whether you can comfortably stay. That's not a villain. It's just whose job it is to do what. Now, to be fair, sometimes a $500,000 house genuinely works. 2 high incomes that are stable. A real 20% down, so no PMI. A lower cost city where your dollars stretch further. If that's you, this can absolutely make sense. The point was never buy. The point is to run your own real numbers before the market runs them for you. So here's the whole scoreboard in one breath. A $500,000 house really costs about $4,300 a month. To carry that comfortably, you need to earn close to $187,000 a year. Around 80% of households don't. And the reason it feels impossible isn't you. It's 40 years of house prices sprinting while paychecks walked. So here's the honest read. For most households, a $500,000 house isn't a small stretch. It's a different income bracket wearing a starter home costume. And here's the one test that actually protects you. Forget what the bank approves. Take your real monthly take-home and make sure the entire house, everything, fits inside 28% of it. If it fits, you found a house you can live in, not just one you can be approved for. If it doesn't, the house isn't the prize. The breathing room is. So picture the fork in front of you. One path, you stretch for the $500,000 house because everyone says that's what you're supposed to do, and you spend the next decade hoping nothing breaks. The other path, you buy the smaller place or keep renting. You invest the difference every month, and you let the math, not the pressure, decide when the time is right. There's no trophy for buying a house that keeps you up at night. The real win is the choice you make with your eyes open. And if you think rent is just throwing money away, hold that thought, because the math on renting and investing the difference surprised even me. That's the next one.